All right, we are dealing with an existential crisis in America unlike anything we've ever seen. All right, so the problem that people are having that I've seen, and I've seen this a lot, people I've interacted with, and people I talk to, people I pass by on the street, friends, stuff like that, people are having a real hard time finding meaning and purpose in life. And that is not a good thing. Because if you don't have meaning and purpose in life, your health is going to suffer. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. So I just want to talk about essentially what I think is leading to this, what I think is causing it, the impacts that it has on our health. Because I do think that when your mental health is in the tank, then your physical health and everything else about you is going to be in the tank. And I also want to talk about some things that I think might help people out based off my own personal experience. Because as someone who's completely retired from the workforce now, I don't have anywhere to show up to. So I can pretty much do whatever I want. And that's basically what I do, is just whatever I want. And it would be really easy for me to just sit around and not do anything and not find purpose and meaning in life and just kind of waste away, which is what a lot of people do when they enter retirement, because they work their entire life. And then all of a sudden they get out and they have all this free time and they just basically lay down and sit down, don't move around. They just waste away. They rot. So that's what I want to talk about. So to kick this off, let's just talk about the crisis real quick. So there's a lot of people that are struggling to find purpose in life, to find meaning in life. And it's really having a negative impact on people. It's putting people in a very negative space. And I think it's causing them to not go after the things they want and not achieve the things in life that they want. And not just that, but not do anything to make positive change, whether it be for themselves in terms of health or in terms of just positive change in general to the world. Because as humans, I think we're creators and we're meant to kind of give back and create positive change in the world. And I think this is holding people back from doing that. So what do I think is behind this? I think there's a lot of factors. I don't think it's a singular thing. I think there's a lot of things that play into this. I think a lot of it really just ties down to our modern world and what we're exposed to. So first off, let's just talk about what I think is probably the obvious, and that is dopamine. That is phones, like this thing right here. Cell phones, computers, technology in general. Everything has our attention. We don't have time to focus our attention on anything else except for notifications and, social media and content and all this stuff. And, I talk about this stuff because I fall into these traps too. Like, I get on these self-improvement journeys and I consume content, and maybe I watch too many videos and all this stuff, and it can really take up time. And before you know it, you're on your phone like 3 or 4 hours. Like, I know there's sometimes, especially since I really started paying attention to this, I would get my daily phone report, which comes through on Sunday, tells me how much I've used my phone. I kid you not. It's hard for me to even admit this because this is absolutely terrible. But there would be times where it was like 34 hours in a week. All right, 34 hours on this stupid thing, this small screen, which is probably destroying my eyes. But I mean, whatever else it's doing to my brain, because the thing we got to think about is like, and I'm learning more about this too, like as I go along, but you actually produce dopamine when you're in a state of like being idle. Like if you're bored, you produce dopamine. If you're working towards something very hard, you produce dopamine. If you're doing something fulfilling, you produce dopamine. So as we go throughout our lives, and especially throughout history, when we were like chasing animals and building shelters, we were producing dopamine. When we were in a state of rest, we were producing dopamine. Now we're getting dopamine from these electronic artificial things, and it's in amounts that we have never experienced before. And it's constant. So by the time we get out of bed and we check our phone 1,000 times, halfway through the day, we're just exhausted. And we don't have the willpower or drive to go after anything else or do anything else after that. And we just feel so depleted because all that dopamine is getting essentially used up, and you're not giving yourself time to basically step back and replenish it. So that's the first problem. The second problem is work. That's a big one for a lot of people. And I mean, I worked 18 years of my life up until 39 last year, and I got out of the workforce. And, I worked a lot, okay, because I was in a very high demand, fast-paced environment. I had a lot on my shoulders. I was a fairly high-level manager, I guess you could say. And I had a lot on my shoulders. I had a lot I was responsible for. I was responsible for basically coordinating a team to travel around the whole world to do stuff, all right, like technology stuff. And it was a lot. And I did that I was a manager since 2014, but I was doing that since 2005. In some capacity, I was doing that. And I worked a lot. I mean, sometimes 60, 80 hours. There were days where I'd leave work and I'd get home 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'd have 2 or 3 hours to myself, go to bed, wake up next morning, and have to be back at work. And I repeated that cycle, whether I was on the road, because I traveled 50 to 75% of the year as well, all over the world. I repeated that cycle. And after a while, that wears on you. And for the average person that's working, not in that kind of environment, because that's pretty extreme, but even if you're just showing up at a job, it can wear on you, especially if you're showing up at a job that you don't necessarily enjoy and it's not something that's fulfilling. That's what kept me hanging in there, because I worked with amazing people that I loved to death, and the job I was doing was very fulfilling. I loved everything about it. So that kept me in there and that kept me going. But I know for a lot of people that maybe don't have that and they're just showing up at a job, it can be tough. And especially when the economy is kind of in the tank and stuff is very expensive. And now all of a sudden you're working this job and you're working a lot of hours for a lot of people. And some people have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and you're still not really getting ahead. That can also lead to this existential crisis of people just not having a purpose or meaning in life, because you're essentially working to get all this money, but what's it for? Because you're never getting ahead. You're not seeing any kind of result based off any of that work that you're putting in. So that's the second problem. Third problem, I think a lot of us are focused on the wrong stuff. We're in a world of consumerism. It's literally set up this way. I mean, it's no fault of our own, but it's set up this way by these rich people years and years ago, because they were making things that didn't break, and it was a very sustainable, I guess you would call it, like economy, where people would work and they would buy stuff and they didn't have to buy stuff again because things just didn't break and they were making money and everything worked. So now they said, well, this isn't sustainable, it's not a sustainable business practice for us, the elites, because we're not making money and the corporations aren't making money. So let's turn this into a consumer-based economy. That's literally what happened. Like, I'm not making this up. If you're not familiar with this story, do some research, and this is some content that's worth watching. But that's what happened. So we're stuck in this materialistic consumerism world now. All right. And everybody thinks that if they work, and I'm speaking on this from experience because I'm going to get into that in a second, but everybody thinks that if they work and they buy all this stuff and they have all the things in life that they think they want based off this consumerism mindset, that it's going to make them happy. That's going to be what fulfills you, and you're just going to be, the rest of your life's going to be hunky-dory and you're good to go. I can tell you from experience, all right, that is not the case. And this is just my opinion on this based off what I've experienced. But I got to a point in my life where I had and do have pretty much everything I could possibly want. I own 2 homes. I'm debt-free. I have pretty much every materialistic thing I could ever possibly want. I don't need any more stuff, and I don't want any more stuff. As a matter of fact, I'd like to get rid of a bunch of stuff so I don't have so much crap and just almost be more of a minimalist in a way, but not really live the minimalist lifestyle, just not have so much stuff. Because what I found is that I had all this stuff, I had the cars, the boats, the toys, again, everything I could possibly want, but I was gone all the time and I never got to enjoy this stuff. I was making great money, but I never got to enjoy it. So all that stuff just kind of sat there. And the fact that I never even got to enjoy it didn't even really bother me so much. It did at first, but it didn't really bother me so much after I thought about it, because I was traveling, I was experiencing the world, and I was, experiencing new cultures and meeting people and exploring different countries and states and doing all these amazing things. And that isn't what ended up mattering to me. All this stuff, I just simply didn't care about. And what did bother me at first, and I was like, man, I have all this stuff and I never get to enjoy it. This sucks. I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I could probably sell everything off and I wouldn't miss it, because that is what I found out doesn't really matter to me. And I think for most people, we're focused on all this stuff that we're led to believe we think we need, when actually what we're really looking for is, I would say, it's an emotion. You're actually searching for an emotion, and you're trying to fill a void. It's basically something that's missing inside you that you will never fill with materialistic stuff. Money can help get you there. I'll give you that. I'm not saying that money doesn't play a role, but even if you have like ample amounts of money, it's still not going to fill that emotional void and bring you fulfillment and meaning if you're still missing that purpose in your life. Like, you have to find that purpose, that why, that meaning, that emotion, and you have to find out what's going to fill that, and it's not going to be through materialistic stuff for most people, I would say. So we're chasing all this stuff, and I think that's why a lot of people that are the most successful and end up getting all the stuff they want are the most miserable, because they find out their entire life was basically based on a lie. Now they have all the stuff that they've been searching for and trying to get their entire lives, only to get it all, and now to not be fulfilled and it not actually fill that void. So that's the other big part. The last one, and I could go a lot deeper into that one because I love talking about that topic, because I think that's also very important. But for the sake of keeping this video not super long, I'll go on to the next one. So the next one I think is food. All right, and here's how I think food ties into this. And it almost ties into the consumerism, materialistic piece. So what I think is happening with the food, what I know is happening with the food, because I've researched this a lot, and there's a lot of like data and documents and stuff to back this up, and just look around the health of our nation. But I think it's the fact that food is, number one, completely devoid of all nutrients. That's a humongous problem. Can't even stress that enough. So food's devoid of nutrients, and then you have all the chemicals that are in and on food. Glyphosate, pesticides, herbicides, atrazine, list goes on and on and on. Those are all antibiologics, pesticides, herbicides. Then you have synthetic fertilizers that are sprayed on the soil because there's no nutrients in the soil. So that's a big problem. And then you have all the hyper-processed food, which everybody consumes. And all those foods are literally made to addict you and to spike dopamine. So it's just like looking at your phone. When you eat these foods, your dopamine in your brain is just going crazy constantly. And you're constantly seeking out that dopamine response. And that's why they call them hyperpalatable for a reason. Because when you eat these foods, it really trains your palate to only want these foods that are like an amusement park ride every time you eat them. And if you don't eat those foods, then it's bland and it's boring. So you're constantly chasing this dopamine rush and these reward centers in your brain. And that's what these foods trigger, and that's how they addict you. And then you also have all the stuff in them, like the artificial ingredients, additives, preservatives. There are so many bad things in food that destroy your health and that are endocrine disruptors and lead to metabolic dysfunction and neurological disorders and behavioral disorders and mood disorders and anxiety and depression. All that stuff, it can be linked back to food. And I think out of all these things, I think food is a very, very big problem. I think that's probably at the top of the list, probably right behind or right in front of technology and cell phones. And I think those two go hand in hand, because we're marketed using these cell phones, this technology, to buy this food, and then we buy it, and it's hyper palatable. It excites all those reward centers in our brain, leaves us feeling extremely depleted, and we can't think for ourselves. So that's what I want to get into next, is the impact that this all has on our health. I think that when you don't have something to live for, you don't have a reason to get out of bed every morning, and in a lot of cases you probably have a really hard time getting out of bed every morning because you're so depleted. And when you don't have purpose and you're just stuck in a constant and perpetual state of despair, your health is going to suffer. There's a lot to back up the fact that when you're in a positive mood and you have gratitude and you just have like meaning in life and stuff, that your actual health is going to improve a lot. And there's a lot that, it might sound kind of woo-woo, but there's a lot of evidence to back up that if you manifest things, like let's say you manifest that your health is great, and you believe that you're healthy and that you can be healthy and that you can heal and all that, there's a lot of evidence to back up the fact that people that believe those kinds of things actually get healthy. And, I think a lot of that too is based off lifestyle decisions, obviously, because if you believe you're going to be healthy, you probably have more drive and determination to actually make yourself healthy. But I think mindset plays a huge role in that, because you think about somebody that's depressed and they just don't have a will to live, their health is going to suffer. Their mental state is going to drag their physical state down. Their lymphatic system is going to deteriorate. Their immune function is going to deteriorate. Everything about them is going to be reflected based off their mental state. So I think that's what's happening. I think that's what's really causing health problems in this country. You know, obviously all the food and all the things we're exposed to, environmental toxins and all that stuff, being sedentary, all these things play a role. And food plays a fundamental role in destroying and deteriorating our health. But I think, you know, beyond that, it's the fact that we're not fulfilled, we're not living a fulfilling life. And our mental health is just causing our physical health to suffer. It's causing everything about us to suffer. And I think when that happens, you don't have the will and determination and drive to actually make yourself healthy. So if you start gaining weight, or you start, you know, just your health starts going downhill, maybe you want to start exercising, that kind of stuff. When you have all these dopamine hits and you're so depleted, then you lose that willpower to make positive change for yourself. You don't really want to have any kind of self-improvement because you don't have any drive or willpower to go after it. So you're just kind of left in a state of limbo. And like I was mentioning before, you just kind of, you get sedentary, you just lay around and essentially just wait until the end, until your life is gone and you didn't do all the things in life you wanted to do. You spent most of your life probably suffering from some sort of chronic disease or maybe metabolic dysfunction or something that didn't allow you to get out and do the things in life you want to do. And obviously that can be a very big problem. And I think that can be a huge problem that holds a lot of people back. So with that said, how do we break free from this, and how do we develop healthy habits that we can carry with us for the rest of our lives so that we can get out of this constant and perpetual state of despair that so many of us are in? And I'm just going to speak based off my own experience because, like I mentioned before, I have gotten caught in this cycle where it's kind of like stuff just really has no meaning and you're just kind of going through life, going through the motions, and you're really not working towards something. So I'm going to share what worked for me. And it might not work for you, but hopefully at least it will give you some ideas. And at least you're aware of this stuff so you can start thinking about it. So the first thing that's worked pretty well for me is doing a tech detox, a social detox, getting rid of your phone for as long as possible throughout the day. And I think the most important time to do this is first thing in the morning when you wake up. Because when you wake up, your dopamine stores have restored. And if you immediately turn to your phone, it's going to basically deteriorate them. I mean, your dopamine is going to be gone essentially before you ever even get out of bed. And I've fallen into this trap. And I still do this sometimes. It can be a very hard habit to break yourself from. But I can tell you the times that I don't look at my phone and I give myself like at least 15, 30 minutes, an hour if possible, before I ever even look at my phone, the difference in how I feel in the morning and the amount of drive and ambition I have is night and day, 100%. So that is one of the big things I would recommend. Give yourself at least bare minimum 15 minutes, wake up, brush your teeth, make your bed, do whatever your morning routine is outside of looking at your phone. 15 minutes or as long as possible, as long as you can push that off. If you use your phone for an alarm clock, find something else. Like put your phone in another room and find an actual alarm clock and set that and use that instead. That way you don't actually have to look at your phone physically. That way you're not triggering that reward center in your brain, because the moment you look at it, it's going to trigger it. Guaranteed. Second thing that works very well for me is getting outside, getting in nature. If you can do an hour a day, I would bare minimum an hour a day. But I know for some people, maybe that's not plausible. You have a lot of stuff in your life going on. So 30 minutes. Everybody should be able to find 30 minutes to get outside, because in our daily lives, we're going back and forth to work. We're in either work, we're working inside, we're at home, we're in our car. We spend very little time outside in nature. We never get the sun on our skin, which is very, very, very important. We never come in contact with the earth, which is also very important. And that can actually help you kind of displace energy. So if you have too much like anxiety and stuff and stress built up in your body, it can actually help regulate that and get it out of your body. There's a lot to back that up too. It sounds woo-woo, but it very much works. And I would highly recommend that. And if you have a dog, then your dog is your excuse to get outside and move around, because your dog needs to move. doesn't need to be sitting around inside all day. And your dog, just like us, needs sun on its body. It needs sun in its eyes. That's very important for all animals, except the ones that live in caves. But for anything else that actually grew up outdoors or is supposed to be outdoors, getting sun on you is very important. So use your dog as an excuse. Go for walks, 15-minute walks. You can do that a few times a day, or do one long 30-minute walk, depending on the breed of dog that you have and what they can tolerate. If you can do an hour with your dog or go hiking or something like that, even better. Parks, things like that, are going to be awesome. If you live in the city, there's probably a park around there somewhere. If not, you can walk around the city and explore a little bit. There's always ways to get outside. And there actually is a website called Bring Fido. If you haven't heard of that, I'll put a link to that in the description below. But that's places that have like off-leash dog parks and stuff like that are dog friendly. So you can take your dog to these places and you can both enjoy being outdoors. And that ties into the next thing, which is daily movement. So moving your body. Again, if you're sitting around and just kind of waiting for the end, then you're slowly deteriorating. You will degrade if you don't move. Your lymphatic system is tied to daily movement. All these things are tied to your body actually being able to move on a regular basis. And we're meant to move. We're not meant to be sitting around. We can run and sprint for very long distances, and we have very high endurance for a reason, because we're kind of designed to do that so that we can hunt animals and we can go after stuff and we can build and we can create and we can do all these amazing things that humans have done throughout all of history. But now in our modern world, we're very sedentary. So the more you can move around, the better off you're going to be. Again, your dog is an excuse to do this. So capitalize on that, get outside, move around, move your body. Your body is going to thank you. Your mental health is going to thank you. And all these things are going to give you time to yourself that's going to free you up from distractions. And that's the next key point. So when you're doing all these daily movements and you're getting outside, don't take your phone with you. Don't put in earbuds. Don't listen to music. Take time to just think. The Power of Now. That's a book. Ed Cartoll wrote this book. Read that book. You don't have to read the book, but what I'm getting at is the power of now is very real. And what it essentially means and boils down to make it very, very short, is that there's a lot of power in being in the present. And when we're constantly stuck in our heads, or we're faces stuck in our phones, or we're stuck thinking about this or that, or what if, or all these things, then we're not living in the present. And your life can kind of get away from you, and you miss out on a lot of stuff. So when you're going about your day and you're moving around outside, take the time to just enjoy the peace and quiet and just take it all in. Soak in nature. Look at the actual real world. And this is another thing I've fallen into, because I've gotten to where like I'm doing social media. Sometimes I'm making videos, I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm just constantly in the computer. And basically an entire day will go into a computer. And when I disassociate myself from that and I step outside and look around, it's almost hard to detach myself from that. But the moment I do, it's like, I don't know, it almost makes you feel more alive and more awake. And you realize all the things you've been missing out on. And time actually seems to kind of slow down, because when my face is buried in my computer, time goes by pretty quick. And I can work an entire day away and not even really think about it. But when you're outside and you're just in the present, time slows down. And that's something that none of us have enough of. We don't have enough time. So the more you can slow time down, I think the better off you're going to be. And that brings me to my next point, is having something to believe in. Having something to work towards. And this can be anything. So for me, again, I don't have anywhere to be. I wake up in the morning and I'm my own self-motivator. If I didn't have a very strong willpower and determination, and if I wasn't very ambitious to go after the things I want, I could very easily just sit around and not do anything. But thankfully, I have this tribe. I have you all. Everybody that watches these videos, this is my purpose right now. This is the phase of my life that I'm in, because the only thing I want to do is help people. I do everything I can to help you because I've been through the ringer with my health, and I just want to give back. That's one of the big reasons I left the workforce, is because I want to do something meaningful that has impact on other people's lives, that's going to succeed me and live on beyond my name. I don't have kids. I probably will never have kids. There's nothing that's going to live beyond me. And this message probably won't live beyond me either. But if I can make a difference while I'm here and impact other people's lives, that's what I want to do with my life. So you have to find your why. I think this is very, very important. And you will never find your why until you remove yourself from all these things that are distracting you. Remove yourself from the food, the social media, the internet, the consumerism, the messaging, the narrative. Just remove yourself and be present in the moment with yourself and think about, what do you actually want? And again, you won't get there. You won't be able to think of this if you're still eating toxic foods. So focus on nutrient-dense whole foods, remove yourself from that, improve your health, detox your body, detox your mind, and you will, I can promise you, because this happened for me, you will have a lot of realizations and you will wake up to a lot of stuff and you will start to see what's important. And when you start to realize those things, you will want to go after it. And after a while, once you've really been awakened and your mind is just on this new path, that's all that's going to matter to you. And you're going to have a new drive and ambition and willpower to go after those things. And it's going to light a fire under your butt to go after them and to get them. That is what happened for me. And I've seen that in other people, because there's other people I've helped over the years that have had this same thing happen. And it seems to be very consistent, especially with people that end up removing all this toxic food and end up going on like an animal-based or carnivore diet. Not saying you have to be carnivore, but I think that's a very quick way to start you down that path, just because it detoxes your body and then it nourishes your body and establishes a very strong baseline. And that's what I've seen in a lot of people. But the key point would just be to remove toxic foods and focus on real, natural whole foods, hopefully not from big industry that aren't sprayed with crap, toxic things, and focus on stuff from your local community. But that is what I experienced. So find your meaning, find your purpose, find your why. Find the things that fill that emotional void in your soul, that thing that is missing deep down within you that I think has been stripped from us. It has been strategically and methodically stripped from us. And I think it's actually a narrative to do that. That way we don't go after the things in life we want, and we don't think for ourselves, because they want this consumerism society that is basically stuck working. They want a working class, and that's what they've gotten. But if you really want to break free from that, and if you're still watching this video, I can assure you that you do, because you would not have dedicated your time, which I greatly appreciate you doing, considering we have a very finite amount of it. And for you to dedicate your time to this video, to hear what I have to say about this, means that you want that. So don't hold yourself back. Don't let yourself be your limiting factor. If anything else, only allow it to be these things I just mentioned. Don't let yourself hold yourself back. Go after what you want. Make changes so that you can get started down this path. Find your purpose, find your meaning. Go after the things in life that you want. And there's no doubt in my mind that if you do that, you will find them. You will achieve your goals, and you will get out of life everything that you want. So I really hope you got some value out of this. If you did, feel free to leave a comment down below. Just let me know what your thoughts are. Share your experience. Just share your thoughts in general, because I'm very curious on what you have to say. And if you stuck around this long, I greatly appreciate it. And again, I know you can achieve your goals. So don't wait. Just go after them and go get them.